Hello and welcome back to the Better Everyday Podcast. John Mitchell back with you. Darren, good to see you today.
Hey, John. Starting to turn a little cooler fall-like, so get ready for that.
Yeah, it feels good to me. I think the sweater world is where I belong. I
Yeah,
cover
same
as
here.
much of my body as possible when I go into public. I like the cold weather. You know me, I'll wear a sweater in August, but
Yeah,
at
I'm
least
the
it's
same.
socially acceptable in the fall. Hey, it's good to be talking again. It's funny how we hit the record button and we act like we don't talk, but we talk all the time. Lots of conversation. You know, right now we are developing some new ideas about how to think about small business and small business customers in a new world. It has changed so much. Thinking about where we were in 2019, it literally feels like it must have been 20 years ago.
I'm not sure exactly what happened, but everything changed during the pandemic. Certainly, there's a component of the workforce that seems like they, disappeared in a lot of respects because everybody's struggling to hire people. Expectations shifted in what customers really wanted from whoever they were buying from. There's this whole move now to move all kinds of production, back to the U.S. from a security standpoint, whether that's building chips or I saw a special this morning on, mining for nickel because nickel makes, is instrumental in making batteries, and we want to make batteries here. So there's this, a little bit of nationalism in and around all of that, but everything has shifted. The way people are thinking and talking has just shifted.
It really has. And I think if we're not careful, we'll think of that as a socio-political shift and not as a human behavior shift. I mean, it's not just about politics. It's not just about our social interactions. It's also about our individual behaviors, what we expect from somebody that we're buying something from, what we expect from a customer. Everything that we expect from each other has changed as well. And it is time to hit that with some new ways of thinking. So fortunately, I feel fortunate in this way, Darren. I don't know if you do or not, but a lot of people, and I've been there, you have to just go in, day out, go to work. And you don't have the luxury of stepping back and going, what are we doing? And I do feel blessed to get that luxury.
I actually think that's it, John. I think you just hit the nail on the head. It feels like pre-pandemic, we were just going, and more was more. And the concept, whether you had a restaurant or a hotel or an accounting firm or landscaping company, whatever, more was more. And it felt like you would just keep hiring and more would continue to feed on more. And then all of a sudden that's come to a screeching halt. And no longer are we just doing things the way we've always done them and more being more. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. My daughter's a history freak. She loves, especially U.S. history, but world history in general. And she talks about, I learned about the Industrial Revolution. She's learning about the demographic changes because of the Industrial Revolution, about the socio-political changes, and also about the individual people and the way they thought and why they moved and all of those things. And so she's looking at this right now as not just a blip on on this year's radar, but as a historic moment where we're going to look back on and say what changed. And if we're not careful, when she's telling these stories about people from the Industrial Revolution, is one of my favorites. She's got these individual stories, and she's like, these people had no idea what they were going through. They're just milking the cows. They're just trying to get this day done, And so the question is, what if they did? What if they did know that one day students would be learning about this period of time as an evolution in the way that we think? And I think, Darren, if we can step back a minute and go, this is that epic. Like, we're talking about a monumental change, not just because of technology, but because of the pandemic, because of the way we see the world, because of all the the political environments, we have an opportunity to go, we're living in a moment that people will be studying. And how should we be thinking about it? What will come from this?
I remember as a 10, 12, 14-year-old kid. So this would have been the early 70s. And
you're brave to admit that.
The sociologists, would talk about, what it was going to be like in 2020. And, looking out 40, 50, 60 years, you can't wrap your head around that. Back then we were somewhat of a homogenous society, and, they were talking about how this would all change. But, growing up in a small southern Indiana town that was, pretty homogenous, it was really hard for me to look out and see, how things would actually be different based on what they were predicting, based on the population changes. From a person that grew up again in a homogenous society, I couldn't get my head around it. But I love diversity. There's nothing I really like more than diversity and people from cultures and races and religions all coming together and being this new thing that is America now. I know that sounds super political, but I mean, it's just.
No, I'm moved by the conversation, honestly. I agree. There's something rich about diversity. It's not just about being inclusive. It's not some sort of a statement on who you are as a person. It's about like this thing we were missing in the homogenized world. It wasn't as rich. It was watered down, and we were missing things. And I think, Darren, the new way of seeing the world is about seeing that not only is it not a choice to see the world differently, but you are going to be passed up. Your business is going to be passed up. Your way of contributing to society. You can move to the mountains if you want. Your life's not going to be passed up, but just your contribution to the things going on around us will be passed up if you can't take a moment to step back and see the way things have changed.
And I think that plays right into what we really wanted to talk about today, John, which is this shift that has taken place in all businesses, not just small and medium-sized businesses, but all of businesses. There is a shift that's taken place. I was talking to a friend the other day that said that owns car dealership, said he used to get 3 or 4 new cars in a day. Now he's getting 3 in a week to sell, and this has been going on for a while now. This is not necessarily new, but there is a supply chain crisis in having enough people that is not going to all of a sudden magically shift.
And in the meantime, while he is worried about his 3 cars a week, most of his old customers are going to Carvana and have shifted the way they think about the whole industry. You guys can keep buying cars and moving to your lot if you want, but I can see all the cars in one place while I'm sitting on my couch and have one delivered to my driveway.
Good point. So, you've been down that path.
I have. And one of my good friends is a car dealer, but in the long run, you just have to be like, what are you doing? I'm not saying you shouldn't deal cars. I'm saying you've got to pay attention to the way the world has changed and what the customers and what the people that are supposed to be your focus are the way they're consuming your product at this point.
So a term that we've coined and we want to talk a little bit about today is a term called smart client management. You could call it smart customer management if you want, but me coming out of the accounting world, I call it smart client management. And it's really a new way, not a new way, that's probably not right. It's a more intentional way of thinking about your business.
It is. The question that I've been getting from a couple people that I've rolled this out in front of is just what is smart? What do you mean by that? Does that mean the old way is dumb? And I think of it, Darren, like when we came out with smartphones. A smartphone wasn't about there being a better, the old way being dumb. It was about this being something that was was with you all the time. This is something that is the new way of thinking about being intentional about your calendar and about your email and about all these things right here. And the idea of smart client management or smart customer management to me is like this. It is time for us to realize that our business model isn't something on paper that we revisit when we go to a retreat. It's something that happens inside of our firm or our company every single day. And if we aren't paying attention to that every day, then we're using an old flip phone. And the smartphone is what we need. It's that daily interaction with our company.
I think of the word smart, John, and I correlate that to intentional. And maybe those words don't really go together, but I think of being a smart customer management as being intentional, deciding how you want to manage your customers versus unintentional, which was more is more, and we just keep lobbing them in, and the supply keeps coming, and you just get on the hamster wheel and you just keep the hamster wheel going. All of a sudden, the hamster wheel is not turning like it used to. So now we have to think differently, and we're calling it smart customer, smart client management as an intentional way of rethinking, I guess, limited supply, John, whether that limited supply is how many people you can serve in a restaurant, or it's limited supply in number of hotel rooms, or, the number of tax returns that you can get done. There's a limited supply at this point.
I think that's one of the things that smart client management focuses on. The other one is reprioritizing the human life around you. One of the things the tech age did, I think when my daughter's daughter studies this age, is the tech age brought us incredible advancements scientifically, but it also started devaluing human life in some ways. And one of the things that the pandemic did was make us remember that people are the thing that matters most in all of our worlds. And Darren, we've been saying this as the introduction to our smart client management conversation, that there are two valuable assets, the two most valuable assets in your company, if you're listening to this today and you're a business owner, are people. They're your client list and your team. If either of those go away, you don't have a business. And if you don't prioritize them on a regular basis, Darren, you called it an unintentional. I would say it's more aggressive than that. It's passive. The consequences of a passive business model are loss of clients and loss of team. And that loss of people is what's causing businesses to struggle all around us.
Again, as you and I have talked about smart client management, the driver for that is your two most valuable assets, is your people. Whether that is the people that make up your customer list or the people that make up your team. This idea of just lobbing more and more customers in when there's limited supply. So if we just play that out a second, John, I have this vendor that I've used for 35 years that I'm not going to go too deep in who they are because they may even listen to our podcast, but they've provided a service for me for a really long time. And they do two components of service for me. They do a regular sort of maintenance service, of which I pay them a bunch of money every month in a fixed contract to do that maintenance. And then periodically I need something in addition to that done. And I've been asking them for, 6 months to come out and get that done. And they've been so busy lobbing new customers into their system, and a new customer takes up all their bandwidth that they haven't been able to get out here and do it. So they're either looking at me and saying, wow, he's been a customer for 35 years. He's not going anywhere. I can put him at the bottom of the list. Or they're just ignoring it. I'm not sure why. I can just tell you as a customer how I feel about being a really good customer and somebody not realizing that or acknowledging that. See what I mean?
It's no different than the rest of our lives. When we're passive in our lives, we take for granted the things that matter most. And what's happening potentially with that vendor, Darren, is that they're taking for granted your relationship with them. And at very least, they're taking for granted that they needed to communicate with you on a regular basis and that they need to show up and they need to, and I think that's what is at the heart of smart client management is reprioritizing the things that maybe we have taken for granted in the past, the relationships that we have with the people who pay us and the relationships we have with the people who are executing the work of our businesses.
Well, the two things I think about as I think about that vendor, John, is they're not intentionally, I don't believe, managing this golden thing they have, which is their customer list. And at the same time, they're lobbing more into the system and putting all this pressure on their existing team, because if they can't get out to me, that means they're just running, they're just spinning every single day trying to get new things done. And whether this business knows it or not, they're just being unintentional about the way they're approaching that. So I think of smart client management, John, as really this whole concept of the daily active management of your business model. So this company, as an example, needs to think about, what is our business model? I mean, what are we here? Who are we supposed to be serving here? Who's our ideal customer? I got to think, based on being a 35-year customer and paying them a ton of money each year and using all their services, that I would be ideal for them, right? And then secondly, what do they want to sell me? And I'm buying all their stuff. I'm buying everything they want to sell to me. So that seems ideal still. And I let them essentially do it the way they want to do it. They don't have to do it on my terms. They do it on their terms. So it's, I think a business model is who, what, and how. And I think of smart client management as the daily execution of that. And if you're not being intentional today about managing your business model, you're being unintentional. And that's creating all kinds of chaos with your customers and with your team.
Just while you were talking, I was just thinking about when I was in college, I was, very much, down with the man kind of a feel, where big business was the problem,
Yeah.
And what did I mean by that? And what do people mean by big business and, big data and all these things that have this bad connotation? What they mean is it becomes depersonalized. And what I'm afraid when I hear you say that, because I know the business you're talking about and it's a small business, I'm afraid that this problem with businesses becoming depersonalized has eked into small business as well. Just because you're local doesn't mean that you didn't just completely passively take for granted your client list and not pursue that on a regular basis. And the thing is, financially, it is your best opportunity to grow your business, to make your best customers completely holistically happy with your product is the best way to grow your company. And I think the fascination with things like HubSpot, which I love HubSpot, but HubSpot is easy to use. It's really quick, and it's sold people that you just need more. You need more of these. Now, they are a customer relationship manager, but there's so much marketing in it that it's like, let's go get more, let's go get more, let's go get more. When the issue isn't more, it's better. And better is what brings us more value anyway.
That's such a great point that you're bringing up, John. When I think about helping accounting firms as an example with marketing, if you went through an accounting program, marketing was one of these one-off classes that you took to get your degree in accounting, right? So it was not something that you learned a bunch about and that you were necessarily good at or sort of was in your wheelhouse. So when an accounting firm hears the word marketing, they're always a little bit scared because it's not their core competency. But when you really break down what a small accounting firm needs to do from year to year, they need to find 10 new customers, right? 10, one a month is what we're talking about. And this whole idea that you're going to go, nothing against HubSpot, because I also like HubSpot, but the idea that you're mass fishing, trying to bring people in is not what you need to do to get 10 customers.
No, and it's creating chaos. You're filling the boat full of fish you never meant to catch.
But there's this expectation that everybody everybody's using social media. Everybody's doing, using HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever the case might be. And I need to be doing all this stuff because, one, you don't even realize you only need 10 customers. You think you need to be doing this other thing, and you haven't done the math, right?
Yeah.
So if you do the math and you say, I need to grow by, $150,000 this year, and my ideal customer is $15,000 a year, I need 10. What's the easiest, best way for me to go get 10, onboard them into my system, and then holistically, it's another word that I really like to use as it relates to smart client management, is holistically serving them, which means that what they need in the whole broadest scope of serving them the best possible way. You know what that is as a professional or as a business owner. What do you need to do that? And then focus on that customer, not lobbing in the next one.
It's such an important conversation for every leader to have about what do we believe about growth? Is more clients to add to my list growth? What do we really believe about that? And what we know is if you haven't sat down and worked out your who, your what, and your how, as you talked about, then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to fall into whatever comes in. You're going to fall into whatever they'll buy, and you're going to fall into however they want me to do it. And so you have to be intentional, or Darren, you end up, maybe you do need more than 10 because all you're doing, in the accounting world, all you're doing is selling a $400 tax return. Well, if you're going to grow on that, yes, you do need 200. But what we're talking about is being so intentional about what do we really do? Who is it that really needs our services holistically? And we only need 6 of those this year. And by the way, if you look at your client list and you go backwards and you do a little forensics and say, how do we get this one? I can predict it. It was word of mouth. It was somebody who said, this guy cares about me. This company believes in what I'm doing and wants to be a partner with me. That's how you're going to get your next best customers too. Sorry, HubSpot. They're not sponsoring this podcast.
I guess the point we're making today, John, is the world has shifted. I think everybody seems to know that. Supply chains are not going to solve themselves anytime soon. Customers are expecting something more. They're expecting to be holistically served. And all of this leads to the idea that if you have a small business out there, or a medium size, or even a bigger business, you need to know who your ideal customers are, what you want to sell them, and how you want to deliver that. And you need to holistically serve them. And we're calling that really smart client management today. So to put a term to it, that's what we would say. But at the end of the day, what this really does is it makes your clients better and creates a better place for your team to work. And it's all about just making people's lives better, John.
So I'm going to take this just a little bit different direction as we close this. I hope this doesn't throw you off, Darren, but I've been reading this poem that my daughter introduced to me last night, Emily Dickinson poem. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. For one, I don't think I can make it through it emotionally. It's still hitting me that hard. But the first paragraph in this poem is, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words. And it never stops at all. And I asked London, what does that mean to you? She's like, well, it's like you don't have to make hope. You don't have to make the future and the good things. It's already singing. You have to stop your life to hear the hope, to hear the thing that's next, to hear the future, to hear what is good in your life and in your business. Darren, part of our problem is not that we have lost hope. That's a misnomer. There's no such thing as losing hope. There's no such thing as losing a good picture of the future. It's there. It's losing perspective. It's getting our lives so noisy that we have missed the point. And it's getting our businesses so full of whatever comes in the door that we forget what we're actually doing here. And to me, the power of smart client management, call it what you want to call it, but figure out a way to get back to the things that lead you to hearing what's around you, to seeing where you fit in the world. Because what's happened is people are rolling their eyes at companies and products that stopped caring about their influence on the world around them. And your company is not an exception. You have to create a moment where you can stop and say, what value am I bringing? Where can I plug into the thing that's already happening here, the good thing around me? And that always boils down to how I treat the people around me. I will return the call. I will holistically serve them, not because it's good for my bottom line, but because it's good for my soul. It is who I am to do this well and to do this right. And then guess what? Guess who wants to work for you? The very best new accountant coming out wants a place where they can plug into that. So to take a business model conversation and end it with an Emily Dickinson poem, to me, it's about stopping to get perspective that we don't just have to go to work again today. There's something for us to plug into that's better than work. And it's holistically, intentionally, and daily prioritizing the two most valuable things in our companies.
Yeah, John, you did not throw me for a loop. I actually think that's a profound way to tie this all together. So, great job.
Hey, it's a good conversation. We hope you heard something today that moves your business forward. More importantly, moves you forward as a human. Never take for granted the fact that you're listening to this. The fact that you give Darren and I 30 minutes of your day blows me away, and we are honored to be a part of it. Thanks for listening. We look forward to talking to you next time.